Zhang Yi was utterly stunned. Such a bizarre scene was beyond his imagination. Yang Xinxin, Lu Karen, and the others were also staring in amazement. Is this an underground construction by humans, or is there a more powerful civilization underground? Lu Karen muttered to herself. The huge black and purple square formation before their eyes seemed impossible to complete with human technology. While everyone was still confused, Zongyue's voice suddenly rang in their ears. Look, the Centipede King is there. It wants to climb that pyramid. Zongyue woke everyone up, and they looked in the direction of his voice and saw the Centipede King. It had already climbed to the edge of the square formation and was rushing towards the pyramid in the center of the formation at an extremely fast speed. Zhang Yi thought to himself, could this be the secret to its rapid growth? Let's go, kill it. Li Changgong shouted. Although they didn't know what this strange place was, they had to kill the Centipede King and completely eliminate the threat to the Yuan Stone Vein. But as the four looked at each other, their eyes were fixed on the top of the black and purple pyramid. The Centipede King was desperately trying to climb up, probably aiming for the 6 purple crystals. Most likely, they were something that could give the mutants great power. None of the people present were fools. Although they didn't say anything, they wouldn't let anything good slip away easily. Li Changgong was the first to move, using 6 realms without distance to pull away and rush straight towards the Centipede King. Zhang Yi was in no hurry to act. He never liked to be the first to try something new. Moreover, this place gave him a strange feeling. This huge pyramid looked so perfect that it definitely wasn't some lost ruin. Did it have any guardians? The sudden appearance of a huge underground world, as well as the black and purple giant crystal square formation and pyramid, brought the group an unimaginable shock. Was this an ancient ruin, or a mysterious device built by an underground civilization? Zhang Yi didn't have time to think, as the other 3 had already chased after the Centipede King. Zhang Yi didn't care, as long as he was there, he would get a share of the Centipede King's death. As for the purple crystals on the pyramid, Totoro pointed at them excitedly with Zhang Yi's hand, his eyes sparkling. Do you know what that is? Zhang Yi asked Totoro in a low voice. Totoro didn't understand Zhang Yi's words and just looked at him eagerly, his eyes full of longing. Zhang Yi understood something in his heart at that moment. Sure enough, is it similar to Mist Valley on Star Island underground in the Qinling Mountains? Thinking of this, Zhang Yi dared not act rashly. Li Changgong and the other 3 caught up with the Centipede King. They desperately wanted to kill it and then explore everything about this mysterious square formation. However, when the Centipede King approached the square formation, it suddenly swung its tail and swam away nimbly. In front of Li Changgong and the other 2, a sudden change occurred. The square formation, which was composed of huge black and purple regular polyhedrons, suddenly began to surge up and down like ocean waves. A white light slowly emerged from the polyhedrons. The polyhedrons were like mirrors, and many huge white figures appeared in them. They were countless strange white creatures with cold distorted faces and spider-like bodies. The expressions on the faces of Li Changgong and the other 2 changed instantly. Are these the guardians of the underground? They had no idea what they were facing, but at that moment, the Centipede King was already flying rapidly in another direction. Zongyue said coldly, that guy deliberately lured us here. As he spoke, those huge white spider-like creatures emerged from the polyhedron. They were about 20 meters tall, with bodies like spiders, but their 8 legs were much longer than those of a spider. Rather than spiders, they were more like a group of giant white stick insects. However, compared to the Earth centipede, they gave off a sacred and cold feeling, which, combined with the distorted faces on their heads, made people feel sick from the bottom of their hearts. Crack! The spiders at the front slowly opened its lower jaw, which could open at least 140 degrees, and then fired a purple energy cannon at Li Changgong at the front. Li Changgong's face sank, and he immediately swung his sword, splitting the energy cannon in 2 without any difficulty. However, the scattered energy directly shattered a large area. Zongyue and Hanshan's expressions turned extremely ugly. With just the power of that one strike, the ability index of these spiders must be no less than 9,500 points. And if their bodies had the strength of Earth centipedes, their true combat power would be at least 9,700 points. But how many of these creatures were there? In the square formation of several million square meters before their eyes, these giant spiders appeared one after another with expressionless faces, forming a terrifying white wave. As far as the eye could see, there were tens of thousands of them. Even Epsilon-level mutants would be worn down to death by such a large number of high-level Delta-level monsters. Now the three finally understood why the Centipede King had led them to this place. Its purpose was to use the spiders to destroy the 4 human Epsilons. By the time the three realized what was happening, the Centipede King had already run far away, and the awakened spider guards naturally set their sights on the three in front of them. Their cold faces were expressionless, and they simply pounced forward to kill. Zhang did not rush to pursue them. He was always cautious and guessed that something was wrong. Sure enough, the sudden appearance of a huge group of face spiders confirmed his guess. For a moment, Zhang was caught between a rock and a hard place. The situation was now completely chaotic. They had originally come to chase the Earth Centipede King, but now they discovered that there was such a huge secret deeper underground. What should he do? From his vantage point, he could see the Centipede King fleeing. It was moving quickly across the ground while emitting excited screeching sounds, as if mocking them. Zongyue, Hanshanzhua, and the others were already caught up in the wave of spiders and had no way of escaping. When they fought with these creatures, they were shocked to discover that their pure white shells were even harder than those of Earth centipedes. Li Changgong was fine, as he could use his I am heaven's will to break the spider shells. However, Hanshanzhua and Zongyue needed to expend a lot of energy to kill them. They couldn't crush them as easily as they had crushed the Earth centipedes. The three of them were locked in a fierce battle when they noticed that Zhang Yi was still standing in the sky, with no intention of coming down to help. Li Changgong angrily yelled at Zhang Yi through the communication channel, "Chaos, what are you looking at up there? Hurry up and help us get out of here." Zhang Yi ignored Li Changgong's words and looked down at the vast area below him. Although they were underground, it was not dark. There was no sun, moon, or stars, but the rock wall above their heads was like a huge dome, surrounded by a mysterious purple light. It was as if it were the setting sun, with light scattered across the clouds in the sky. "You guys can handle those guys, right?" Zhang Yi said indifferently. "What do we do now? The mission has changed. Should we leave or continue fighting? If we continue fighting, who are we fighting?" Zhang Yi asked the question on his mind. The Centipede King had already escaped, but Zhang Yi could chase after it. However, given the complicated situation at hand, they had to figure out what their top priority was. Was destroying the Earth Centipede tribe really the most important thing? Zongyue immediately said, "The Centipede King must be killed. Otherwise, we will completely lose the Yuan Stone vein." "I understand," Zhang Yi said. He opened the dimensional gate and dove down. As he quickly approached, the huge army of spiders on the ground also spotted him. Instantly, hundreds of Earth centipedes raised their heads and fired purple energy cannons. Zhang Yi blocked the dimensional gate and completely absorbed the attack. These tens of thousands of spiders might be a huge problem for others, but not for Zhang Yi. With his absolute defense ability, it was easy for him to beat them. However, he was too lazy to break their hard shells, and there were too many of them, so killing one or two didn't make much sense. Zhang Yi passed through a series of energy cannons that formed a net and arrived in front of Zongyue and the others. "We need someone to hold these guys back, then I'll take Go Chen and one other person to kill the Centipede King. That's the safest option right now. 2 against 1 would guarantee victory, but 3 against 1 would be the safest option." After all, they were underground, and the situation in the underground world was unclear. Zhang Yi wasn't going to take any chances. Zongyue said, "Let me stay and hold them off. The 3 of you go kill the Centipede King." Zongyue's defensive abilities were second only to Zhang Yi, so letting him deal with the group of spiders was undoubtedly the best choice. We'll solve the problem as quickly as possible, then come back and kill them. But you need to be mentally prepared. Zhang Yi looked deeply at Zhong Yue. Han Shanzhua said, "No, I'll stay with Jin Yuanzi. It's too dangerous for him to stay here alone." These spiders were indeed very troublesome, but their strength was only at the high delta level at most. But why did the Centipede King show such fear towards them? This meant that there must be even more troublesome monsters in this place. Zhang Yi said, "Then let's leave. Otherwise, it will be impossible for Go Chen and me to kill the Centipede King quickly." Even though one of the Centipede King's clones had been slashed to death, the remaining body still possessed considerable strength. How could it be so easy to kill it under the ground? They had to execute the previous tactic and send 3 people to quickly resolve the problem. Otherwise, relying only on him and Li Changgong, even if they succeeded, it would take a lot of time and energy, and failure was still a possibility. A smile appeared on Zhong Yue's face, and there was no fear on his determined face. Always looking back and forth will only leave endless trouble. The Centipede King must be killed. Leave this to me, the 3 of you go. Han Shanzhua looked deeply at Zhong Yue, then nodded. Okay. Time was of the essence, so the 4 quickly finished their discussion, and Zhang Yi directly opened the dimensional gate and flew out of the spider's encirclement with Li Changgong and Han Shanzhua. No matter how many enemies there were, they couldn't stop Zhang Yi. When it came to survival skills, Zhang Yi was second to none. After they left, Zhong Yue let out a terrifying roar from his throat. Roar! Powerful supernatural energy burst out from his body, forming a surging wave of air that sent the spiders flying several thousand meters away. He stood on the ground, his body completely covered by a thick layer of yellow supernatural energy. The solid supernatural energy around his body turned into armor and weapons. He was clad in heavy armor, holding a heavy shield as tall as a person in his left hand and a huge drum hammer in his right hand. He was not tall, but he looked like an indestructible fortress. Come on. He opened his eyes and said softly, his gaze as calm as an ancient well. The area around him was densely packed with white spiders, layered upon each other, forming a circular wall like a coliseum. Countless spiders scrambled toward Zhong Yue. Zhong Yue shook his thick right wrist, and the hammer, which was heavier than his body, whistled in his hand. He swung his wrist, and with one blow, he knocked the spiders rushing towards him into the air like baseballs. Bang! 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 Zhong Yue's fighting style looked very simple, but it was full of violent beauty. One after another, the spiders were smashed to pieces by his hammer and thrown violently into the air. However, there were too many spiders. After confirming that they couldn't catch up with Zhang Yi and the others, the spiders from all directions rushed towards the tall arena and leaped towards Zhong Yue in the center. Zhang Yi, Han Shanzhua, and Li Changgong rushed straight towards the fleeing Centipede King. They knew they had to hurry, or else something would happen. Moreover, even Zhong Yue couldn't hold out for too long in the face of such a huge tide of spiders. The Centipede King sensed Zhang Yi and the others chasing him, let out a threatening and angry roar, and turned around to fire an energy cannon. But at this point, it was no longer at its peak, and Zhang Yi blocked the attack effortlessly. No matter how fast it ran, it couldn't outrun Zhang Yi and Li Changgong, who could teleport. After more than 10 seconds, Zhang Yi and the others caught up with the Centipede King. Han Shanzhua's huge body emitted a sharp crowing sound, and the power of the omen of disaster bound the Centipede King, making it feel as if it were stuck in a swamp. Li Changgong clenched his long sword in his right hand and said, "Chaos, send me over." After several attempts, they no longer needed to say much to each other, as they already knew how to work together to hunt down the Centipede King. Zhang Yi opened the dimensional gate, and Li Changgong used it to close the distance, then used 6 realms without distance to get even closer. Nothing could stop this sword, it was bound to slash through the Centipede King's body. The Centipede King seemed to know that in its current state, it was no match for the 3 people in front of it. It seemed to have made some tragic decision, letting out a shrill scream before raising its head. Everyone thought it was going to fight to the death, and even Li Changgong became serious. But right under everyone's noses, it suddenly changed direction and swam toward the square formation made of huge black and purple crystals. The three of them looked in the direction the Centipede King had gone, and saw that it was the huge and strange purple crystal pyramid. Just now, when they had seen it from afar, they hadn't thought it was anything special. But now, looking at it from the ground, they realized how huge it was. Even the largest pyramids discovered in human history were less than half its height. It was at least 1,000 meters high, like a huge mountain peak standing in the center of the square formation. The black and purple crystals were smooth as a mirror, and purple arcs of electricity flowed from the entire square formation and converged at the top. The Centipede King's hundreds of legs struggled to climb up, and it quickly reached the bottom of the pyramid. Zhang Yi frowned. Its target is what's on top of the pyramid. Li Changgong said, although I don't know what it is, we can't let it get it. It might be related to its rapid increase in strength. The three looked at each other, their eyes full of meaning. Although they didn't understand what it was, they felt that it must be very powerful. If it could increase the Centipede King's strength, why couldn't it increase their strength? I won't just stand by and watch it take that thing. A crossbow suddenly appeared in Zhang Yi's left hand. It had been modified by Lu Karen and was now a deep, dark silver color. He took an arrow from his right hand and placed it on the bowstring. Then he slowly pulled back the bow, and a huge black hole slowly formed behind him. The void energy around the black hole swirled, and strands of terrifying power of the void spread up his arm like tentacles. The arrow was aimed at the Centipede King, who was struggling to climb the pyramid. With a whoosh, a huge black spear pierced through space, leaving a long trail in the void, and in an instant, it arrived behind the Centipede King. The advantage of a crossbow is its powerful attack and long wind-up, but it is undoubtedly a good choice for hunting down a panicked Centipede King. Zhang Yi hadn't attacked the Centipede King before because it was too strong at the time, and it was difficult for him to cause any effective damage with his skills. But now that the Centipede King's strength had greatly diminished, the situation was completely different. The Centipede King sensed the danger behind it and quickly twisted its body to dodge. However, after racing 3 kilometers, the halberd of doom quickly turned and locked onto its location. The Centipede King was not used to this move, so it was caught off guard and was hit right in the back. A huge dark sphere rose around its body, and the enormous destructive power shattered its shell and left it covered in blood and flesh. The Centipede King cried out in pain as it repaired its body and accelerated toward the top of the pyramid. Zhang Yi stood outside the square formation with no intention of pursuing it, his face solemn. Li Changgong glanced at him and hesitated, his intention to rush over and finish it off. Why not chase it? I just feel that this place is not as simple as it seems. Zhang Yi replied truthfully. This place was too mysterious and strange, full of unknown things. According to Zhang Yi's cautious nature, not running away immediately was already considered a risky move. Looking at the huge pyramid, he became even more certain that this place was not simple, and he would never touch it even if it killed him. Han Shanzhua said, if you guys aren't going, I'll go. When the time comes, I won't hold back with the origin. He was unwilling to sit idly by and watch the Centipede King climb the pyramid, because no one could predict what would happen then. But unexpectedly, before they could make a move, someone on the other side of the pyramid acted first. Zongyue, who had originally agreed to hold off the Spider-Men there, had climbed up the pyramid at some point and was quickly rushing toward the top. The expressions of Zhang Yi and the other two changed noticeably. They had seen the crazy spiders rampaging. That guy told us to chase after the Centipede King, but his own goal is what's on the pyramid. Zhang Yi suddenly understood. He recalled Zongyue's expression just now. When he saw the huge square formation underground, the surprise on Zongyue's face was very unnatural, as if he were acting. So this is the real purpose of the Xinjiang region? Zhang Yi's eyes widened as he suddenly understood everything. The Xinjiang region had long known about the existence of this huge underground world, as well as the mysterious square formation and pyramid. Otherwise, why would they make such a big fuss and gather all the best fighters in the Huashu Kingdom just to deal with 2 mutant creatures? At first, Zhang Yi had thought they were just being cautious. But now he knew that the real purpose of the Xinjiang region in gathering them was to explore the mysterious world deep underground. And to obtain whatever was on that pyramid. Damn him, he's after the pyramid. Damn it. Han Shanzhua flapped his wings and flew straight towards the pyramid. Anyone who still didn't understand at this point was truly stupid. Li Changgong was afraid of falling behind, so he quickly activated his ability and flew straight towards the pyramid. Only Zhang Yi remained standing in place, motionless. High risk comes with high reward. Therefore, when you are stable enough and not too greedy, danger will stay far away from you. He didn't have enough information about this place, and he couldn't figure out what kind of backup the Xinjiang region had. If everything that happened here today was really a conspiracy by the Xinjiang region, then the best choice was to escape as quickly as possible. Because the Xinjiang region definitely had the strength to suppress him, Li Changgong, and Han Shanzhua. However, considering that the Xinjiang region was, after all, the leader of the 6 major regions of the Huaxu Kingdom, even if they had something to hide, they would not go back on their word about the Yuan stone vein. Zhang Yi had already obtained 2 pieces of Epsilon source of origin, the Centipede Queen and the Centipede King, which were too large to carry, so they had been temporarily entrusted to him for safekeeping. Therefore, even if Zhang Yi left now, he would still have made a fortune. There was no need to take such a huge risk for a treasure he knew nothing about. This should have been a simple truth, but greed still prevailed in this world. For the 3 Epsilons here, there weren't many treasures in the world that could tempt them. However, good things that could increase their strength were extremely rare. After all, so far, there was no better way to quickly increase their strength than hunting mutants of the same level to obtain their origins. A mutant beast and 3 mutants were all trying to reach the top of the pyramid as quickly as possible. The spiders around them surrounded them frantically, and the entire pyramid was covered in a sea of white, a terrifying wave. The Centipede King was the first to reach the pyramid, so it was also the fastest to climb to the top. Its huge size gave it an advantage. It only needed to lift its body, and its head quickly rose above the pyramid. Looking at the 6 huge purple crystals stuck in the center of the altar, its eyes became hazy, and a huge desire appeared. Without hesitation, it opened its huge mouth and bit down on the altar. The other 3 changed color and were about to rush forward to stop it. At this moment, the Centipede King's body seemed to be hit hard by something and suddenly leaned backward. Its huge body fell from the pyramid with a deafening sound. A huge wound appeared in the source area of its chest, through which blood flowed like a spring, quickly staining large areas of the square formation. This sudden scene stunned everyone. The Centipede King was dead? The 3 people near the pyramid were terrified, while Zhang Yi, who was watching from a distance, suddenly narrowed his pupils. He saw something unbelievable. The thing that had pierced the Centipede King's body was suspended in midair. It was a white snake-like creature, only 4 or 5 meters long, incomparably small compared to the Centipede King. But it was this creature that pierced the terrifying Centipede King in a single strike with a speed that was difficult to capture with the naked eye. It was completely white, even giving off a holy feeling. Not a single drop of the Centipede King's blood stained its body. Its shape was somewhat similar to a white snake, but it had 2 wings like a cobra growing from its head. No, they were much larger than cobra wings, more like a pair of white wings. It held the Centipede King's heart in its mouth and swallowed it bite by bite. It didn't give off a particularly powerful aura, but its appearance caused Zhang Yi to feel an inexplicable sense of awe. He had experienced a similar feeling when he encountered the mysterious black-armored creature in Mist Valley on Star Island. The mysterious snake-like creature appeared out of nowhere and killed the Centipede King in seconds. Zhang Yi and the other 3 were stunned, their fear reaching its peak. Even if the 4 of them joined forces, it would be extremely difficult to kill the Centipede King. How powerful was this creature that it could kill the Centipede King with a single blow? The white snake slowly ate the Centipede King's source. Its movements were very elegant, as if it didn't even notice Zhang Yi and the others around it. When it appeared, the restless spider army slowly dispersed. Zhang Yi's hands and feet were cold, which was a natural reaction when encountering danger. The next moment, he didn't hesitate to open the dimensional gate and escape through the passageway he had come from. Facing an opponent of this level, there was absolutely no chance of victory. He had to escape. His encounter with the black-armored monster had given him a little experience in dealing with such beings. They would not easily leave their lair. As long as he escaped from the Qinling Mountains, they would not chase after him. But the worst problem at the moment was that they were tens of thousands of meters underground. Just as Zhang Yi was about to escape, the white snake suddenly looked in his direction. With just a glance, the entire world around him suddenly became a terrifying place. Zhang Yi saw strange lights and shadows, and all the light around him was distorted. He crossed one dimensional gate after another, but the distance to the entrance of the passage above his head didn't get any closer. On the contrary, it was getting farther and farther away. After dozens of attempts, Zhang Yi suddenly felt something lock onto him from behind. This guy. Zhang Yi didn't know what was going on, but he could feel the huge power difference between himself and the white snake. However, there was no hope of escape at this moment, so he had no choice but to fight to the death. Zhang Yi turned around and used everything follows the trail to lock onto the white snake. At the same time, he said to Zongyue and the other three through the communication channel, "Let's fight. We still have a glimmer of hope if we work together, otherwise we'll all die here today." He had to drag these three unlucky bastards down with him. As long as they could delay it for a certain amount of time, Zhang Yi would have a chance to escape from here. After all, among the four of them, he was the strongest at protecting his own life. When encountering a tiger in the wild, simply running away would not solve the problem because you couldn't outrun a tiger. However, if you could divert its hatred, such as finding a scapegoat, that would greatly increase your chances of survival. He wasn't close with Li Changgong and the other two anyway, so Zhang Yi wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice them to save his own life. How could Zongyue and the other two not understand Zhang Yi's intentions at this moment? But they had no choice, because Zhang Yi was the only one who could take them away at this moment. But at this moment, Zongyue looked at the purple crystal just inches away, gritted his teeth, and made a crazy decision. He had come here on a mission. That time when he went deep underground, he discovered a mysterious world while fighting a frantic battle with the Centipede Queen and the Centipede King. However, he was unable to withstand the attack of the two mutant beasts and had no choice but to flee. It seemed that the Centipede King had absorbed the power of this place, causing his ability index to skyrocket from 18,000 to 20,000 in just 1 month. The mysterious Qinling Mountains held a great secret. Once unlocked, it would allow the Huashu Kingdom to quickly rise to the top of the world. After the Great Mutation era, countries around the world were frantically searching for the truth behind the mutations and striving to improve the strength of their mutants. Whoever could take the lead in this apocalyptic era would seize a huge opportunity. Therefore, even at the risk of his life, Zongyue had to try to bring back a piece of the purple crystal. Li Changgong and Han Shanzhua looked at Zongyue, who was risking his life for the crystal, and were scared to death. This was because the white snake, which had originally been targeting Zhang Yi, had turned around and set its sights on Zongyue. There was no anger in its eyes, only calmness like a pool of spring water. Zhang Yi couldn't even sense the slightest hint of murderous intent from it. It was a condescending gaze from above. Could it be that in its eyes, Zhang Yi and the other three were as insignificant as ants? The more Zhang Yi thought about it, the colder he felt. He remembered that he still had a secret weapon in his hand, the cursed puppet that Guanlongyue had given him. But would this thing really be useful against the white snake in front of him? The white snake looked calmly at Zongyue, who was struggling to climb onto the altar. Gritting his teeth, he covered his hands with his powerful supernatural energy and grabbed a huge purple crystal. But no matter how hard he pulled, the purple crystal seemed to be part of the pyramid and didn't move an inch. Zhang Yi looked at the white snake, whose back was facing him, seemingly without any guard. But suddenly, its body underwent a strange change. Its body began to wriggle, its head stretched forward, and a human face emerged from its original snake head. A few seconds later, like shedding its skin, a silver-haired young man less than 5 feet tall emerged from the snake skin. The huge snake skin slowly tightened, turning into a slightly baggy silver robe that wrapped around its body. No, at this moment, it had turned into him. He was no longer in the form of a white snake, but had turned into a human being in front of Zhang Yi and the other three. Zhang Yi's mind was in turmoil, like a raging tsunami, almost causing him to lose the ability to think. He had actually seen a white snake turn into a human being 20,000 meters underground? Could it be that the legend of the white snake really existed? No, although the figure in front of him was beautiful, it clearly had male characteristics. Too many unimaginable things had happened today, but Zhang Yi had no time to think about it. He did not attack, but defended himself with all his might to avoid provoking the mysterious figure in front of him. The white snake didn't even glance at Zhang Yi. He glanced lightly at Zongyue, who was struggling to pull out the purple crystal from the pyramid, and slowly raised his right hand. An extremely rare double-edged sword appeared in his hand as the space twisted. The white snake casually threw the sword, and it shot through the air, slashing Zongyue's right hand in the next moment. Pfft! Blood spurted out like water, and Zongyue's face turned pale with pain as he staggered backwards. The supernatural shield he was so proud of was broken with ease, as if it were nothing. With a wave of his hand, the double-edged sword flew back into the white snake's palm. Han Shanzhua and Li Changgong's bodies were trembling as they looked up at the white snake suspended in midair, as if looking up at a god. But at this moment, they had no other choice. Roar! Li Changgong raised his sword and slashed at the white snake. Swish! The moment he swung his sword, the white snake's sword was already there. Li Changgong's long sword, a weapon made of Edelman metal, was slashed in half. He was also knocked flying by the enormous force, his internal organs suffering a tremendous impact. Puff! A mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth. Han Shanzhua raised his head and let out a loud cry from his crow-like mouth. Omen of disaster. Black crow feathers fell from the sky, and black mist wrapped around the white snake. However, the white snake was completely unaffected by this level of restraint. He didn't even move his sword, just extended a finger toward Han Shanzhua's huge crow head. Pop! A sound like this came from his mouth, and Han Shanzhua's head was pierced by an inexplicable force, passing through from front to back. Blood spurted out. His overwhelming power brought deep despair to everyone. He was not even in the same level as them. How could they fight him? How could they escape? The white snake turned his head and glanced at Zhang Yi behind him. There were thousands of meters between them, but with a slight swing of his right hand, Zhang Yi felt as if all the space in front of him had disappeared. The sword was right next to him, sending a chill down his spine. Everything under heaven. Without hesitation, Zhang Yi unleashed the greatest power of his life, stacking the gates of 3,000 realms around himself to form a huge shield with no blind spots. However, the layers of shields were no match for the double-edged sword and were easily cut to pieces. With his life hanging in the balance, Zhang Yi finally took out the cursed puppet Guanlongyue had given him. He untied the red thread and threw it at the white snake. A strange light finally appeared in the white snake's eyes, and he turned the sword in his hand and split the wooden puppet in two. The puppet was split in half, its interior as red as blood, and red blood even flowed out from the middle of the puppet, creating a strange feeling. Clang! The sound of chains rang out in the air. A large, eerie gray mist enveloped the white snake, and two huge ghost gods, black and white impermanence, floated out of the mist holding soul-binding chains. The chains gradually solidified and finally bound the white snake's wrists. He looked down at the iron chains on his wrists with a hint of surprise in his eyes. This familiar scene left Zhang Yi no time to rejoice. He could only pray that Guanlongyue's abilities would have some effect on the white snake. Hurry up! Zhang Yi shouted in a low voice to Zongyue and the other three. He opened the dimensional gate and, taking advantage of the white snake being bound by black and white impermanence, quickly swept past and flew toward the rock passage above with the three seriously injured people. The two huge ghost gods stood on the left and right, pulling on the chains in their hands. Deep in the ghost mist, the Hell's Guillotine, which looked like it reached the sky, slowly emerged. The white snake's expression was calm, even a little indifferent. He exerted force with both arms and actually broke one of the chains. Zhang Yi and the other three were terrified and could only try their best to escape from this place. Snap! In the next moment, another chain broke. Guanlong Yue's abilities were powerful, but they could only delay the white snake for a moment. It's over! Such a desperate thought arose in Zhang Yi's heart. He deeply regretted coming to this ghostly place. They were no match for such monsters. He couldn't help but blame the Xinjiang region in his heart. It was their trap that had led him here. The white snake completely broke free from the bonds of Hell's guillotine. The power of the curse had little effect on him. He looked at the four people fleeing in the distance and slowly raised the double-edged sword in his hand. But just at that moment, something strange happened on the pyramid. A powerful energy was slowly gathering. The white snake's expression changed slightly. The square formation was of great significance to them and absolutely could not be destroyed. After only a moment's hesitation, he chose to return to the pyramid. Just as a terrifying force was about to erupt, the white snake's pale right hand came crashing down from above. The space twisted, and the terrifying force writhed like a monster, but it was suddenly suppressed. The white snake's expression became serious. Even he couldn't completely control the power unleashed by this strongest weapon of humans. With a wave of his hand, he wrapped the terrifying energy in his supernatural powers and quickly flew away with it. The four of them felt the pressure behind them disappear, and Zhang Yi breathed a long sigh of relief. He used the dimensional gate to continuously shuffle through space and finally escaped the mysterious underground world with the other three. After a long time, they returned to the insect nest they had come to earlier. The intimidating force behind them disappeared, and only then did they stop. At this moment, all four of them were in a very sorry state. Except for Zhang Yi, the other three were seriously injured. Han Shanzhua was particularly badly hurt, with a gash in his head. If it weren't for his large head after transforming, which prevented the injury from reaching his brain, he might have died. Zhang Yi was soaked through and his heart was beating so fast he couldn't tell how fast. Zongyue, what the hell did you do? Zhang Yi stared intently at Zongyue and called him by his name without any courtesy. At this moment, Zhang Yi was furious and didn't give him any face. He was almost killed by Zongyue. Zongyue smiled bitterly and said, I installed a small Reaper of Love on the pyramid. Zhang Yi was stunned for a moment, then laughed coldly, you're really smart. No wonder White Snake was afraid to take any risks and chose to go back to protect the pyramid instead of helping them. But come to think of it, this was also a terrifying thing. Although the small Reaper of Love that Zongyue carried with him wasn't very powerful, judging from what had just happened underground, White Snake had indeed used his own power to suppress the nuclear explosion. This kind of power far exceeded that of any of the mutants Zhang Yi had encountered so far. Except for the black-armored mutant in Mist Valley. When the black-armored mutant fought Cardalus and Black Tortoise, he was just like White Snake today, treating them like children and not using his full strength. Speaking of which, Zhang Yi thought of White Snake's attack on them. He glanced at the three seriously injured people and couldn't help but frown. The White Snake didn't even try to kill them. Otherwise, he could have killed all four of them in seconds. His attack seemed heavy, but he avoided all the vital points. What was the reason for this? The White Snake of the underworld could transform into human form. Could it be that they had some kind of special connection with humans, which was why they showed mercy? After the terrifying scene just now, Zhang Yi didn't dare to stay here any longer. Let's get out of here immediately, he said to the three of them. Now that the 2 Epsilon-level Earth centipedes had been wiped out, the remaining Earth centipedes couldn't cause too much trouble. They could be cleared up slowly later. They were seriously injured and had to hurry back for treatment. The three had no objections, and at this moment, the insect nest was already teetering on the verge of collapse due to repeated impacts. Zhang Yi took his 3 seriously injured companions and quickly left the insect nest. Before long, they arrived at the abyss. At this time, the battle here had reached a fever pitch, and some mutants had even died. Seeing Zhang Yi and the other three appear, everyone was too shocked to rejoice, and immediately noticed that except for Zhang Yi, the other three were seriously injured. The mutants of the three major forces were shocked and hurried over to take their leader away. Zhang Yi said to them, "You guys escort them out first, I'll stay behind and cover you." Li Changgong and the others took a long look at Zhang Yi. They knew very well that Zhang Yi wanted to take advantage of the situation. However, they owed their escape to Zhang Yi, so they turned a blind eye to his actions. They thought to themselves, even if you take some Yuan stone veins back, how much can you possibly get? The people in the three major regions of Xinjiang, northwest, and northeast quickly evacuated. Their commanders were seriously injured and unable to continue fighting, so they could only leave the battlefield to Zhang Yi and other mutants from the Jiangnan region. At this time, Flower was also seriously injured after fighting three powerful giant earth centipedes. Uncle Yu, Fatty Su, and Deng Shintong were not in much better shape, having narrowly escaped death several times. Fortunately, Li Yangyang from the Xinjiang region arrived at a critical moment to help, preventing Fatty Su from being eaten by the earth centipedes. But with Zhang Yi's return, all problems were solved. Zhang Yi stood in midair, looking down at the terrifying number of earth centipedes below. They roared madly, sensing the deaths of the Centipede Queen and the Centipede King. They had gone completely crazy and were ready to fight the invaders to the death. Zhang Yi looked at them coldly, and thousands of dimensional gates sealed off the space in front of him. A large number of earth centipedes rushed directly into the dimensional gates, and the remaining earth centipedes immediately stopped and began to attack from a distance. However, to Zhang Yi, it was like a drop in the ocean, without even a ripple. A huge vortex appeared behind Zhang Yi. He did not use a weapon, but slowly raised the index finger of his right hand. A dark sphere quickly formed at his fingertip. Zhang Yi used his hand as a gun and aimed at the huge abyss below. Bang! He chanted softly. In the next moment, the black ball quickly fell downward, filling the entire abyss in the blink of an eye, like a huge star, spinning and falling with a rumbling sound. Shrill screams rang out from the bottom of the abyss, but disappeared after a moment. The abyss in front of them became empty and silent. With just one strike, Zhang Yi had flattened everything here. Deng Shintong and the others were stunned by this scene. Although they knew how powerful epsilon-level power was, every time they saw Zhang Yi take action, they couldn't help but feel deeply stirred, and the ripples in their hearts took a long time to settle. Deng Shintong looked at Zhang Yi, his eyes full of admiration and expectation. If only I could become Epsilon too, he silently thought to himself. Zhang Yi hovered in midair and looked at Fatty Su and the others, his brows slightly furrowed. Now that he had calmed down, he realized that someone was missing. Liang Yu was gone, and Totoro was nowhere to be found. When the white snake appeared, Zhang Yi was stunned and forgot to take care of it. However, that guy was from Star Island himself, so it seemed that he had countless connections to the mysterious underground world and should be fine. "Where's Liang Yu?" Zhang Yi asked. Uncle Yu replied, "Not long ago, she went after an earth centipede, and we haven't been able to contact her." Just then, Liang Yu's silvery voice rang out from nearby. "I'm fine." She walked out of a cave in the rock wall and looked at Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi saw her missing left arm and immediately flew over. "I told you not to be impulsive and stay close to Flower. How did you get so badly injured fighting together?" As he spoke, Zhang Yi asked Spirit Guardian to open the shadow space and let Liang Yu and the others go into rest. Liang Yu did not rush in, but walked over to Zhang Yi. She cautiously looked around, then lowered her voice and said to Zhang Yi, "I killed someone from the northwest region." Zhang Yi nodded. If you killed her, then her death is her death." Zhang Yi didn't even ask Liang Yu why she killed that person. Liang Yu was also a little speechless. "Aren't you going to ask me who I killed and why I killed her?" Zhang Yi said, "You're not the type of person to cause trouble, so the person you killed must have deserved to die." The two had been together for so long that Zhang Yi naturally understood Liang Yu's temperament. Liang Yu briefly recounted what had happened. "Oh, did you clean up the mess?" Zhang Yi asked indifferently. I destroyed the body and made it look like she was killed by earth centipedes, Liang Yu said. Zhang Yi nodded, then it's fine. Don't worry, with all the fighting here, Li Changgong almost got killed himself. He can't do anything about the death of a subordinate. You go and treat your injuries, leave the rest to me. Zhou Keir had already come over and was carefully treating Liang Yu's injuries. Her arm was still in one piece, so although the injury looked very serious, it wasn't actually that difficult to treat. Zhou Keir quickly injected Liang Yu with medicine, then used her doctor ability to perfectly reconnect every muscle, nerve, and even her blood vessels. Zhang Yi told everyone to enter the Spirit Guardian's shadow space to rest, as he still had things to do. Yang Xinxin understood perfectly. She knew that Zhang Yi was definitely going to take advantage of the situation.